All right, episode 57 of the Pop Culture Podcast. We are live. Tom and I are joined by a familiar face, David Black. Hello.
Hey,
And a new face, Fernando. Thanks for coming on, Fernando. Kind of
Hey,
short notice, but welcome to the podcast.
thank you.
It's going to be a pretty crazy show this week. We've got a couple topics we want to talk about before we get into the meat and potatoes of this week's episode. Bob Saget in the news again. His family recently filed an injunction to stop the release of any information, any and all information relating to his death, which is only causing more and more conspiracy theories. What do you think, Tom?
I think the family doesn't want to be used in a conspiracy theory, whether it's true or not. You know, a lot of people are saying it has to do with the jab and after effects and fainting spells and stuff. And they're like, you know what? You can't prove it. You can't disprove it. Let's just everybody leave him be. We don't want him as a poster boy for that side, their goal. Just let him be like a comedy legend and please leave him alone. That's my thought on it. They don't want any. You can take any medical records and say it the right way, and it looks like it helps your side. So I think they want to back away from it.
Yeah,
I think the explanation given is 100% plausible because it happened to somebody I know. They fell over on a tram, bumped their head, had a headache, actually forgot that they had bumped their head because that's what happens with concussion. This lady went home, went to bed. She had a husband. The husband found her dead in the morning. And this is exactly what it seems to have happened to this man, that he's bumped his head, probably forgotten or just thought, oh my God, I've just bumped my head. And bleeding on the brain overnight during your sleep, you die. Unfortunately, a lot of life is quite ordinary and boring that way.
Yeah, the problem is the police report said it looked like a baseball bat or a fall from 20 to 30 feet.
Yo,
So that's
Oh.
like a
Twitter's all a buzz. I must admit, I'm a little confused by Bob Saget's cause of death ruling. The autopsy revealed blunt force trauma to the back of his head. Both eye sockets were fractured, and they're calling it an accidental fall.
Oh, I missed all of that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Take back everything I said.
That's new information. He
yeah,
had
new information's coming every day.
massive head injuries
When did this new info come out?
recently. Well, this was posted on February 11th.
Chris and I have been following it in the last 24 hours. There's been about 8 news stories that came out.
It's crazy. Yeah. The police theory is that he hit his head on the back of his headboard, and people are posting pictures of the bed that he slept on, and it's completely padded. There's nothing hard to hit your head here. This is the bed, or the type of bed that he was sleeping on. There's nothing hard there. Like you hit your head on the headboard, it's like a pillow. How's that gonna fracture your head? But it's interesting, and I can understand where the family's coming from. That they don't want the kids to see that kind of stuff online. I get it, but it just adds fuel to the fire. It really does. I don't
They
know.
don't want a Bob Crane situation. I think I've
Right.
got the correct actor who did Colonel Hogan.
Yeah. I mean, I think Bob would have loved to have gone out like auto asphyxiation. I think that he would love to. I think he would have found the humor in that. But, I mean, I don't know. Who knows? Would you just go to sleep if you have multiple skull fractures? Both your eye sockets are broken. I'm just going to go to sleep. Sleep it
It's
off.
not sleep. It's called becoming unconscious and dying.
Right. Yeah.
I suppose it would appear like sleep, but
I mean, was he just out of the shower? Could you see that he slipped and hit his noggin on the shower and just said, ugh, I'm going to bed. This sucks.
That's possible.
No.
Yeah.
no, not if the injuries are extreme. First thing you'd do is get up and look in the mirror, and if you saw your eye sockets were smashed, you'd pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless he was just so delirious, didn't know what was going on. Just
Possibly, yeah. Yeah, I didn't realize that this was so much bigger. Sorry about that
Yeah,
before.
no, that's okay. You're on the other side of the world. We eat, live, and breathe this stuff. What are you kidding me? Come on. But yeah, we'll never know for sure. I'm sure one day they'll release the documents, the autopsy report. Like even the autopsy report is being blocked due to some obscure Florida law that was made when Dale Earnhardt died. Florida made some obscure law 21 years ago, and that's what the family is using to block out to release all the reports.
Oh, I know why that law came into be. My uncle is best friends with Scott Wimmer, and Scott Wimmer, he took third in the Daytona 500 one year. That's the year that Dale Earnhardt's kid won, and he blocked it, so it was Dale Earnhardt's kid. Bam, Scott Wimmer.
Yeah.
They said that in the crash, his head was off his body except for some skin. That's how bad the force was, and they didn't want any of those pictures out. His head was no longer on his body. So they're like, we can't show these pictures. We got to come up with something.
I've got a problem like that in Australia at the moment because a whole lot of footage went online on proper news sites, commercial TV, after a swimmer was killed by a shark. And you can see half a torso floating around and bits and pieces. And they're saying, oh, no, the commercial news TV has been turned into a snuff movie.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's pretty nuts.
Another thing that we want to talk about is Kanye. Tom has some thoughts on Kanye West and Pete Davidson. Go ahead.
Anybody been following Kanye West?
Yeah, I've been watching his rants. They're hilarious.
They're hilarious. He went crazy. He peed on his Emmys. He's slowly been getting more and more nuts. Him and Kim Kardashian broke up. She's going with Pete Davidson. And his behavior, since we had Mark Schultz on, the Olympic gold medalist from the Foxcatcher movie with the DuPont scandal, that, are you guys aware of that? He was a rich billionaire that fell down to schizophrenia, and his behavior slowly got worse till he killed somebody. And I'm comparing it to, I think Kanye's going to kill somebody soon. No one's telling him no. He's going mad. He's sending trucks and roses over to his ex, telling everybody Pete Davidson has AIDS, writing songs that he's going to kill this guy, and no one's stopping him.
Yeah,
he probably doesn't have all of the usual checks and balances. For instance, I have to pay rent. I'm not a billionaire. So if I start acting up at work, I'm going to be told pretty quickly. I have neighbours. If I start acting up here, I pay rent. I don't own the place. I'm going to hear from the agents. And that, so people keep you in check from going too far to the left or right with bad behaviour. The only thing to keep him in check would be the police.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys read the tweet that he put out where he's talking about how this is all Disney's fault? This is all happening.
No, I didn't catch that one.
He blames Disney. He says this is all manufactured, which is interesting because I firmly believe that whole area is all bullshit. It's all like there's a reason Hollywood is called Hollywood, right? The wands that are magic wands are made of holy wood, right? So the idea is that all of Hollywood is just kind of casting this massive spell on this entire planet, right? Or that's what it seems like, at least. Now, if you think about it, when he starts talking about Disney is, let me find a tweet. It's actually pretty interesting, but he's blaming them for manufacturing all this. But it's true. How many things have we seen that have been manufactured? Even the creation of the Beatles. The Beatles are the first corporate band. There's a reason the corporations put these things together. Now, especially, you guys believe, or have you guys ever heard of semantics, or what semantics are? Is the study of shapes that manifest when sound is played. Now, what's interesting about that?
Now.
Yeah, so there's this rapper called Extentacious who was murdered. I don't know if you heard of this guy. He's a 20-something-year-old black kid, but and you would look at him and you would immediately discount him as oh, he's a gangster rapper. This kid ain't shit. But he put out this he had this interview that he had with the Breakfast Club, and he talks about frequencies. And he's like, the music industry is very selective about what frequencies they put in the music. They know that certain frequencies will lead to a person to create certain acts or put them in a certain mood. Now, here's an example. Back in the 90s, there was a meeting between the heads of privately owned prisons and music execs. And out of this meeting came the birth of gangster rap, right? It's interesting those two got together. But that year the gangster rap came out, Fuck the Police was one of the big songs that came out. And the crime against police that year had gone up 400%. Oh, there we go. That's it.
It's like a manifesto.
It's rambling.
Yeah, but how much of it is not true? Like, if you believe in MK Ultra and some of these people being, used by the government for certain ends, it's highly possible that all these people they're all in play.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible.
So yeah, but that even brings it back to DuPont. He was saying, like, okay, you see those deer up on the hill? When they're on the hill this time of day, those are the robot deer. They just start getting crazier and crazier. And, there's a little hint to, like, well, the government has, microchips this big and they can be on flies, and then they don't go across this fence because I had an electric fence installed to keep the government robot flies out, But it's like, well, maybe they do have them, but I doubt they're spying on you, DuPont. But you
Yeah,
just
well,
see that this is
DuPont was
he
back.
went all the way into madness, but I think Kanye started down the slide. We're gonna see it get worse.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be surprised. Nobody's there to tell him no. That's the thing. And if I were Pete Davidson, I'd be looking over my shoulder because
Yeah.
Kanye's got more money than he will ever spend, and he probably has connections, and he can make Pete Davidson disappear if he really wants to. So I'd be concerned if I were Pete.
I don't know. That guy has a tattoo of Hillary Clinton on his body, and that lady. There's a reason why people get Hillary Clinton. So it could work both ways.
Yeah. It can. I don't know. It's crazy, but yeah, Kanye he seems to be going down this rabbit hole, and I don't know where it's going to lead. Michael Jackson was the same way. He had more money than he ever knew what to do with, and nobody told him no. They were just enabled him. And DuPont was the same way. Nobody told him no. Everybody enabled him because he paid them.
I think the first well-known case of that was Howard Hughes.
Yeah,
Howard Hughes too. No one told him no.
Yeah, well, I think that goes. You can go back to like history. Henry VIII, same thing.
Well, if you go back and study chess champions for a long time, there is such a high rate of schizophrenia. Like almost 50% of them get schizophrenia, and they don't know if it's chess causing their minds to be constantly paranoid and causing the schizophrenia to set in, or if just schizophrenic people are really good at chess. Because of the paranoia.
I'd like to see that study.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up.
I suck at chess, so I guess I'm safe.
All right, you ain't worried. But can you imagine studying chess nonstop and always thinking about getting killed? Just getting
Well, I wouldn't think about it being killed, but maybe there's a very high level of stress involved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
especially at the grand level. I did read something about stress at the grand level, and it was on one of those Coursera courses from Harvard, and I wish I could remember it. Sorry for bringing it up.
Yeah, one sloppy mistake on that level, and the guy's like, I'm going to wear you down in 35 to 40 moves, and you have no chance. You might as well tip your king. That's insane.
So the one person I can kind of throw out there that was completely controlled and also had a psychotic episode was Britney Spears. Do you remember her?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, her dad ran her conservatorship for God knows how long, and she continually has bouts of manic episodes in public. Even now, after she's lost conservatorship, if you go on her Twitter, she's like putting naked photos of herself up and stuff like all the time now, and it's like, whoa, maybe there was a reason why your dad was your conservator.
Yeah,
no, I can understand her. She's part of a large group of people that made it in Hollywood that started off as children. So if your childhood is taken away from you and what you're doing is basically working 24/7 and you hit the age of 28, there's this thing called the 28 Club where a lot of people have died.
And the 27 Club? 27.
Is that it?
Yeah, it's
27. Yeah. With a white lighter in their pocket.
By the age of 27, if you don't have privacy, you're always in the public eye, and it's just 24/7, always working, and has been all your life, it's going to damage you. And I think her episodes are more to do with that sort of damage.
No, there's the conspiracy that her and all the kids that grew up on Disney have all been subjected to MK Ultra, and this is them lashing out now. Like when they've been removed so far from the programming starts failing, and that's when you see these really weird, like spurts of behavior that come out. Well, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what you keep on hearing, and it's strange that sometimes when this happens, these people have like the most bizarre looks of their, like they just look completely empty, like there's nothing going on in the back end. It's interesting. Like
Oh,
That's
there
another
is a more
thing with
down to
us.
earth explanation. I was reading one of the ladies that was in The Sound of Music. She was also the girl that went on to Lost in Space. I think her first name's Angela. She made a comment in an interview. She didn't get too specific, but the comment was basically it boils down to she believes that they gave the kids speed. I think they call it ice now. So to keep them alert and keep them going, again, without them knowing, they were being given food that was laced with drugs. So if your parents are lacing your food, or the producer is lacing your food with speed when they want you to get on and get up, and then giving you a meal before you go and it's laced with downers, that's going to affect you too. And I know that that's common. The Beatles said we could buy that crap over the counter, and the bouncers used to give it to us. That was when they're doing the Cavern Club, and they were in a cycle of speed followed by sleeping pills. You can't work 24/7.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, and Fernando, what you were talking about, with the look you were talking, that's actually a symptom in schizophrenia. Yeah, so many families describe it as you could see the darkness slowly come over them, and they have like sunken eyes and just a look to them when schizophrenia sets in, that it's like physical, and they call it the darkness.
yeah, it's like this complete disassociation from the person. That's what it looks like.
Hmm. They're there but not there. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, David, you have a reason that you wanted to come on.
Yes.
You wanted to talk about satanic panic stuff, some crazy stuff going on in Australia.
Now, it wasn't just that I wanted to come on for me to talk about it, but we're still sort of in lockdown, a shadow lockdown in Melbourne. So it's not like I can get out and talk to a lot of people, and what's come up is very important. And I thought, I'd like to get together with some really great minds that can look at this from different angles. And it is the satanic panic. I took some notes.
Said great minds, guys. See you later. I'm out of here.
Oh, no, you are needed.
Okay.
In our last chat, the things you were saying about endorphins and how the mind's affected are really important. So I won't keep everybody in suspenders here, but on Thursday, the 30th of January at night time, sometime between then and the time the cemetery opened up again on January the 1st, somebody broke into the cemetery, either a person or a group of people. They went to a mausoleum, they opened up a coffin, and they beheaded the corpse and took the head away and body parts. They left behind burnt candles, letters to Satan, satanic symbols. And then they came back on Monday, the 7th, on the Monday night. So the Monday after that Thursday night, they came back and they did the same thing again. They also had a third attempt.
Was it the same mausoleum or different?
All three attempts were at Footscray General Cemetery. Now, to tell you a bit about Footscray, it's not a special suburb. The General Cemetery there looks like the General Cemetery up the road from me in St Kilda. They're all opened around 1880 or so. There's nothing really to pick that one out. Now, it all made the news around January the 2nd to the 4th. So all of a sudden, there's all of these news articles. And in the news articles, this is where I got all of the details and saw the pictures. But over a couple of days of reporting, and it went out internationally, the police decided it was a thrill seeker did this. They had an expert, I couldn't find it again to write his name down, but I don't want to knock him anyway. But an expert said, oh no, this is a psychopath that did this for thrills. But Christopher, when I was talking to you about it, I showed you the 20 main, what do you call them, the points of psychopathy. The 20 main things that define a psychopath. In that, they say psychopaths don't normally exhibit all 20, but if you exhibit 16, you're pretty much there. And one of the key ones is shallow effect. Now, a thrill seeker with shallow effect can't have done what happened at the cemetery, because if you've got shallow effect, you act on a whim. Everything lasts for a very short time. This person has been there 3 times, has absolutely planned it out. They've taken tools to open up the mausoleum and a ladder, which makes me think that it's not one person but a group. They have had letters written already to Satan, which means basically spending time to write the letters. Oh, and when you looked at the pictures, I don't know if you can show it, the way they went into the 2 mausoleums that they were successful with. There was like a mausoleum and 4 sort of plaques. They went in to the top plaque. If you're going to smash into a mausoleum because you wanted to get to a coffin, you just do it on the bottom one. To go to the top plaque is harder, so you probably have to be on a ladder. When they've gotten in and they've gotten the coffin out, they've actually taken the coffin and through the smashed mausoleum plaque, the coffin has been on an angle like this, so that the whole thing is just sitting open, and anywhere from, I don't know, 8 people, 10 people could stand around that. So if I was going to do this, and I'm not, I wouldn't even think to do that. A thrill seeker just would smash in, open up the thing inside the mausoleum, grab a head and go. This person has really planned it out and been intelligent enough to plan it out in a way so that that body is displayed, possibly so that people can watch it, possibly for a cemetery, a ceremony. And then when I looked at it, the skills with the tools, this person has really planned it out. They're not a thrill seeker. So it's not a person, it's possibly, it's got to be 2 people to carry the ladder and the tools, but possibly one person did it. I think it's got to be at least 2 people to have been able to get the coffin out. And because you're in a small space, you pull the coffin out, it's going to be down like that. Then you've somehow got to maneuver it up and through that window. It just sounds hard. And when we saw the photos and saw the letters to Satan, they weren't on the ground. This person got onto the roof of the mausoleum, placed their letters, I counted about 20, and they put them in the shape of an S, and they've been up there for some time. So it takes a lot of planning to have even written 20 letters. And I looked at the letters from the picture we had. Some were just folded up into squares, but some were in triangles. And I thought, did one person write this and just fold their letters differently in 2 different ways? Or is this the whole coven writing letters and one person's brought it up there, or with 2 people on top of it? The information being given out, it is definitely somebody that is trying to do a satanic ritual. The rest is all conjecture after that, because the police didn't show us the candles. We don't know what colour they were. They didn't show us what's inside the letters or anything there.
Well, if they said candles, we should know it's ritual. Nobody goes to break in as a thrill seeker and sets the mood for, you know.
Well,
Nobody
the thing
does.
is, it's the colors are what matters. Like, so different colors will be used for different parts of the ritual. So that's extremely important, at least to identify what specifically they were trying to accomplish.
The content of the letters is important. For instance, were they talking to Satan as the devil, or was this, say, Abramelin, where you've got Satan as a lieutenant of the devil and the person's trying to raise demons? What did they write in the letters? They didn't show us the symbols. So they really kept a lot of information away and said somebody was able to do all of this and they were a thrill seeker, and they only set the Satanism part up to throw everyone off the scent. A thrill seeker doesn't do that because of the shallow effect. Everything's unplanned. It's on the spur of the moment.
I have another question that I think we should rule out right away at the beginning is, was the family targeted? Was that specific grave targeted, like a Hatfields McCoy's type
They
situation?
believe it wasn't, because there were two
Okay.
that were broken into, and there's no relation between the two
Okay.
mausoleums outside of that they're similar in the same section of the cemetery. There was a third one broken into, and I think that was on a third night, and the person found it empty. So if the person broke into one and found it empty, they didn't know it was empty. So
Mhm.
the person might have just said, right, I'm doing all of this, planned it out, but didn't plan to find out, is there a body in these mausoleums, just assumed. They didn't tell us what body parts outside of the head was stolen. They just said other body parts too. That's also important. So the police left a lot of details on, and I think they just came up with this bullshit that it was a thrill seeker to throw the public off of the scent.
Yeah, I'm thinking that too. For the greater good, we don't need everybody's on edge with the lockdown shit. We don't need to start some satanic cult is breaking into graves and have people one more thing to worry about.
Well, nobody wants that anyway.
Yeah,
But, they're saying it's a first for Melbourne. It's a first that I know of it in the media. But if we get back to this Satanist, we've got the information we've got, and this is where we can look at it and see if we can put our minds together. There was a crucifix there, so they brought a crucifix there. There were candles, notes to Satan, satanic symbols, some fairly specialized tools, and a ladder. And that's all we know outside of the taking of the head and the displaying of the coffin in a very clever way, so that it looks like they've displayed the coffin for a ritual. So I researched as much as I could. I couldn't find any satanic ritual that removes the head.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know any of them either, to be quite honest.
So my first question would be, is this person from a real practicing satanic cult? I think there actually are more people involved. Or are these people that decided they wanted to get into Satanism, and all they've got is what they can find on the internet, what they see in the movies and read in books, and they're not necessarily so well practiced, but they're serious?
Yeah, I
Is this
think
what
like
it's about?
18-year-old goth kids or something.
I go to a shop where Molly and I, it's all kinds of school stuff. We find like stones like this, and it's a mystical shop. And they said that since the pandemic, they have like quadrupled their sales. There's some sort of awakening, they're calling it. So perhaps there's just a lot more people searching for answers without more people having answers. And maybe, I'm saying a lot of new people into witchcraft and Satanism. And
Oh, well, in the Wiccan scenes and the pagan scenes, I did find a couple that reported on it. And the ones that reported on it were very quick to jump onto the articles where the police said it was a thrill seeker, because they obviously do not want to be involved in Satanism or have Satanism associated with them, because quite frankly, this is not associated with Wicca or paganism. This is, I'm guessing, because I've targeted Catholic graves, this is your more traditional reverse Catholicism, Satanism.
okay.
Well, they didn't go to any other section of the cemetery. So they've definitely targeted Catholics. So it's Catholic graves, and yeah, that alone just says, and they've used a crucifix. So you're getting into that area almost like the Exorcist. Many different religions can have demon possession, but the Exorcist has the Catholic priest coming through, and he's the one with the ritual, and it's all around Catholicism. So I believe this is a Satanism. It's all around Catholicism. The imagery and the ideas would go back to things like Malleus Maleficarum, the Inquisition, etc. That sort of vibe. But so one question is, are these people? Well, the people are serious, but one question is, are they new, just making shit up as they go along and trying, or have they been part of some sort of lineage where we can find that they've gone for a real ritual?
You know, we could be way overthinking it, and it could be like a new startup Satanism club, and the leader just said, "I want a cup with a human skull. It's got to be a real skull. If you want to join, go get me a skull and make me a cup or something." Just
I
using
think
that.
I think you might be on the right lines, but I think it would be the leader that had the ladder and the tools.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
not
yeah.
telling
I'm
everybody.
just saying, if I was leading a Satan club, I'm not going to get arrested. I'm sending someone else to do that.
Yes.
I think it's the leader that did it, but the police, in one report, it said that somebody heard noises in the cemetery, reported it, and said they saw a man, and the police couldn't find him. They may have seen him, but they couldn't find him, and they looked for an hour, which is probably why they're looking for one male person. But it looks like, to me, a job that would be very, very difficult for one person, possibly manageable by two. I don't think you get
Was
more
the
than
ladder for a fence to get in the cemetery or just for at the mausoleum?
They've definitely used it for the mausoleum if they got on top of the
I
mausoleum.
was going to say, if
So
it
they
was
mu-
one person with a ladder, how are you getting back the other side? You can't jump over and then take the ladder with you.
Yeah, good point. That's why I think it's two people.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, you could probably climb up the cemetery and pull the ladder over, back over. I mean, yes, one person could do it, but they're talking about somebody that is able to do a lot of feats of human strength and be a bit of a contortionist. Two people can do it, and it's still difficult, but it's more doable. So I don't
Could have
believe
been
they're
the group
looking
of people that made the phone call to the cops. You know, could have been a group of chicks saying, "Hey, there's, one dude over there we saw. See you later. Go check it out." As they're driving away with the skull.
No, they said it was a resident,
Oh, okay.
a nearby resident. And I don't think these people really, I don't think that they're looking for the attention, although I could be wrong there because they didn't bother to try to cover up anything. They left everything as they left it. So
Well, did they say the notes had different handwriting? I mean,
they said the person wrote letters to Satan and left it at that.
You can tell if one person wrote all the Valentines to Satan. Was it? Yeah, it was close to Valentine's.
That's information the police have that they didn't release. It was only me looking at the photos that the journalist took that I saw something on top of the mausoleum that did not look like leaves, and there was nothing on top of any of the other mausoleums. And I said, well, look, that's got to be the letters. And some things look like triangles. So I thought that's probably paper folded into triangles. The triangle itself is revealing because it's a trinity. The fact that they missed one, they got two heads, but they tried for three, looks to me like they're after three. And I just had the impression that between then and now that something more might have happened, that they might have gone back. But there is high security at Footscray now, and all of the other cemeteries are saying, all the other cemeteries are saying they beefed up their security. So maybe they're waiting for everything to die down.
And the thing that they didn't dig up an old grave, they want the head intact, right? Above in a mausoleum. They want it less or not eaten up by the ground, right? They want still some meat on the bone.
I'm not sure how old how recently the people were buried. They didn't want the names getting out because of the family. So that's a cover up I agree with. I think it's the same cover up as you're saying with the family with this comedian that recently died. Mm-hmm. So they didn't release the names. I don't know when they died. I just know that those coffins were displayed because the press got a picture of the coffin still out. The press got a picture of the mausoleum from above, and I believe what I saw was the letters. Chris, you've got a picture of that you could put up. So I'm seeing that there's a lot of planning and a ritual. So I'm asking you guys, what the hell could it be?
Well, we live in Wisconsin. We live in Wisconsin, and of course, Wisconsin has a very famous man named Ed Gein, who was middle-aged man, small, skinny, scrawny. He robbed numerous graves all by himself. He dug them up and hauled out what he
Yeah.
wanted. So I know anything is possible. I don't know.
He
I
made
wish I knew.
furniture, and he was trying to make a woman's suit.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of horror movies made about him. And well, he died in custody. So there's a lot known about him. There's no Satanism there.
No.
In Satanism, when we last spoke about Satanism just a few weeks ago, it was just incidental when we were talking about self-mortification in a religious setting and moving on from there. Two main ways of doing things with Satanism. One is to generate the energy yourself so that you can use it. In this case, the person's written letters to Satan. So they're actually doing something to get Satan's attention and ask the favors of Satan. So we already know this is the lowest level of satanic practice. It's like the little kid that asks mum and dad for an ice cream rather than trying to work out how to get an ice cream on their own.
Okay.
So we are talking low-level Satanism where you suck up to a superior being, in this case, the person sucking up to Satan. They believe that they need the heads of the corpses and need to have particular rituals to gain Satan's favor.
So do you think there were two rituals, one done at the cemetery and then another ritual done in a different location with the heads?
I'm guessing once they got the head, they could have a second ritual. If it's goth kids, like you said, they're more likely to want these on display to show their friends, hey guys, aren't I cool? But is this goth kids? Most goths that I know have been pretty nerdy and just trying to do projects in the goth scene, like get a band together and do a gig. I found a hell of a lot of incompetent people, a lot of narcissistic people. We're talking people that actually managed to do what they were going to do. This is a very complicated maneuver to get into that mausoleum, to actually get in, get the coffin out in such a small space, be able to maneuver it to get it through and out the top part.
Yeah, I'm not hiring goth kids to do that.
Yeah. We at least know that the person has got to have tradesman skills and not an apprentice.
You know what? Did it smell of clove cigarettes? Because then you can be sure it was goth kids.
Well, they didn't mention any cigarettes having been stubbed out there, and the press did show photographs after it had been partially cleaned. There were no cigarette butts. So that's the cemetery itself that's just come up. Do we have the picture of the mausoleum? You see the mausoleum there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they've actually put that board over to cover up where it was smashed. But they went through the top part. You can see on the blurred one.
So is that like marble?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is all quite solid stuff. They've managed to use the tools to remove the actual plaque in the front.
Okay.
Keep scrolling down. Let's see what more we can see in that picture. Those are cameras that they've now installed.
Okay.
Yeah, so they've installed cameras now. So it makes sense that that these guys haven't come back. But I thought that they might have just the same. Because if they're that clever to do that, they might be clever enough to work out where you can go without actually being seen by the cameras, and spray paint over the cameras, get something done. But they haven't done it with the high security. So they haven't been back as far as we know, and they didn't go off to another cemetery. In fact, this could very well be the end of the whole saga. But
well, not if they need the third one, right?
That's why I wanted to talk to you guys. I think they're looking for a third head. Fernando, you're more familiar with the dark side and rituals. Do they need a third head?
Well, how are you going to make Hades without the third head, right?
I don't know of any ritual that would use this decapitated head in any of the traditions that I know for any sort of magic. I mean,
I did
granted,
find ones that do, but they're all voodoo.
well, even really
Santeria.
interesting.
Yeah.
So
Very old books that have been scanned and put online had rituals where they used a hand and a head in Santeria. I think Santeria is the correct name for voodoo. I might have got that wrong, but
so
I was reading.
Santeria is the Hispanic version of hoodoo and voodoo once it came to the New World. So voodoo is what's called a synchronous religion. So when slaves were brought over from Africa, uh, so this goes back to these conversations of. So I believe that voodoo and hoodoo are Jewish magic that have been converted to to just the culture of the region, right? Because if you think about it, there's a lot of overlap between how even Freemasonry and voodoo, like for example, right? So the way they operate a voodoo lodge is that they'll have an altar, they'll illuminate it with 3 lights, and they'll put a holy book at the altar. What does that remind you of?
I don't know. Give me a hint.
Yeah, I sort of can't because we're under obligation, but
Oh, yeah. No, the only things that you can't give away in Freemasonry are the handshakes and the passwords. I'd go a little bit further for only 1 or 2 more things, but you can actually tell people the whole ritual, tell them everything. The reason why you don't is because people are going to be joining Freemasonry and it's going to destroy the impact that they have if they know the ritual ahead of time. But no Freemason has ever tried. Freemasons don't go out of their way to get rid of all of the exposures. The idea is that the secrets are there in front of you anyway. It's just that they're hidden in plain sight, and you go through the rituals to be able to learn to see. So they'll let you have everything but the passwords and the handshakes, and then they'll tell you these passwords and handshakes aren't going to get you ahead spiritually. They're actually just, we don't even change them anymore because we're not a secret society. They're just a tradition. But getting back to what you're saying, with voodoo, it is entrenched with Catholicism.
yes.
You get the saints. So nothing about this particular desecration, nobody mentioned voodoo at all, but I did find that, yes, it's Catholic, and there is voodoo ritual that uses a hand, uses a skull, and I found it in a couple of books. I wrote down the name, and of course I haven't got it on the piece of paper to tell you, but there is. But what happened in this cemetery, the letters were to Satan rather than any
like a Loa or whatever, like
yeah,
Loas in the voodoo tradition.
Yeah, there's also the names of different Santa Muerte and various characters.
Santa Muerte is a Mexican deity that's used to represent the Aztec god of death. That's been kind of like conscripted into local Catholicism. So it's Santa Muerte is slightly different, but like within voodoo they have what's called Loas, which are the personification of deities.
I think we can rule out voodoo because they didn't talk about it. Everything that was shown, and there wasn't much shown, just seems to scream Hollywood horror movies to me. But at the same time, we don't know what was in the letters. Would one person write 20 letters to Satan? Or is this a coven with maybe 20 people in it, and the person has brought their letters and said, look, I've got this ritual, Satan will now read your letters, and they put them up high on top of the mausoleum. That's done quite often in spirituality, the belief of putting something up high. Do you have the picture that I got you where I circled the top of the mausoleum, Chris?
Let me pull that up.
Yeah, let's have a look at that. And when that comes up, are these actual letters, or did I just see something that wasn't there? Are we able to pull up the image?
I'm looking for it. I gotta go back through a bunch of messages here.
Yeah. See, I was trying to ascertain what's gone on just from what the police told the reporters, then what the reporters reported on, and I kept finding all of these things that just didn't add up. But nobody here knows anything about any particular ritual they might have had. So likely to be a homegrown ritual that made up themselves.
I mean, that happened out
Yeah,
here once.
house rules like Monopoly.
There was two girls that were all into Slender Man. I don't know if you remember this story in Waukesha. But one of the girls tried to kill the other girl in a hope to try to summon this this creature that was obviously from pop culture. But like she was so insane into it that she went out and tried to kill her friend.
I remember that. If you have a look, we've got the picture now. You can see how that coffin was displayed.
Was it displayed, or did they just pull it all the way out?
You wouldn't need to. If you just wanted to grab the head, you could do it by pulling that out inside the mausoleum, I think. But I don't think we're going to get to go to the mausoleum and go in there and say, is it possible to do this? Is it possible to do that? But just to go through the top part of the mausoleum in the first place seems like the hard way of doing things.
See, so that just looks like in order to open it all the way, you had to slide it out, because it's one big door.
So inside the mausoleum, you don't think there was room to open the door?
Yeah, I think it's like a pizza oven is what I'm thinking. It was slid in and it didn't have room to go up. So
that's
I think
also possible.
Have to pull it all the way out because the whole door opens. So I bet you that's the only way they could get the coffin to actually open more than like a couple inches.
Makes you wonder, because when you start pulling the coffin out, actually, because when you start pulling the coffin out, it's possible that maybe it just went straight out and out. I was thinking it came out, went bonk, and then they had to maneuver it. I might be wrong. I don't know how much room was in the mausoleum. But I know that a mausoleum, you have to have room for a few people so that they can come in and have a look.
I'll bet you it's only as tight as a pizza oven. They had to pull it out and to open the whole door.
I'm surprised it didn't just go through the bottom and just drag it out. That would be the quickest, simplest way, the way you would think. But you could be correct. I could also be correct that they've done that for display purposes. So both of us could equally be correct. It would be nice to know why they did it that way.
Well, you know what? If they seem like they're not trying to get away with it, because if you get the head out and everything, what's keeping you from just sliding it back in there and going
They
home?
didn't do it on either occasion. Now, you could turn around and say on one occasion, maybe they did it, that they left it because they got disturbed. But they didn't get disturbed on either occasion. They would have been long gone for 3 or more hours by the time the desecration was discovered.
Yeah, were you burned in a barn? Put the coffin back in.
It's possible that I would say that they've done it that way because they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care who sees this. The police are possibly thinking, with what they've put out, that this person wants the media attention.
So, very quickly, I did some research. So I know there's an occult group in the UK called the Order of the Nine Angles. They're a satanic neo-Nazi group that they use extreme violence to kind of get their path. But apparently, they also exist within Australia. They're called they're called the Temple of Them.
Does it say what? When it says they're in Australia, does it say what state they're in?
No, it just says Ones Nexian in Australia is called the Temple of Them. Let me quickly find it.
Doesn't have New South Wales, Victoria. One thing they didn't mention finding at the site was any Nazi symbols. Now, the Nazis were full on into the occult, but you would think that there would be a swastika or something, Nazi. Did you find the one where we've got the top of the mausoleum, where you look down on the mausoleum and see the letters?
Yeah, here's that one.
Yeah. Now there's one looking right down. Oh, stop there. Stop there. Hang on. We can see how wide that mausoleum is. They could have opened the coffin door inside the mausoleum. There's plenty of room. That wasn't passed straight through. That's come in, come down, and then they've had to. I think two people had to do it. They've had to maneuver that up and out. Yeah. So when we look at that, that has come down. I think two people had to get that, maneuver that up, and then push, and to get that to come down.
So I found out that temple is located in Victoria.
That's where this is.
That there's also another organization that was formed by the Temple of them called the Australian Satanic Organization Victoria, and that's where they have their meetings.
Well, one of the things with Satanism, a lot of Satanists are actually LaVeyan Satanists, and that's not LaVeyan Satanism. Anton LaVey actually did an autobiography. I think it was called Diary of a Satanist. And in Diary of a Satanist, he talks about why he created the Satanic Church. The man had no background in Satanism whatsoever. So he hadn't studied Crowley. He hadn't studied anything whatsoever. He'd come from a Kanye background, and he liked the imagery of it all. And he creates a club where he gets to enjoy a bit of excitement. I mean, stars from Hollywood start to join. So it gives him an outlet where he and others can meet and do some really exciting stuff and have a lot of sex and have a lot of hot chicks. And he basically says this is why he's done it. But when it comes down to putting together a philosophy, he picks up on the philosophy of the 60s that comes out from people like Abraham Maslow. So he puts a lot of 60s pop culture, me sort of philosophy in it. What he's doing, his people don't go out and desecrate cemeteries and stuff. They dress up. They do have philosophies that are developing that are actually very interesting philosophies. And they're basically a bunch of decent people. They're not out there trying to get anybody. The person that did this was very, very callous. They don't care about the feelings of the people whose graves were desecrated. They've gone to a hell of a lot of trouble. And I think that Satan is their focus, and they wish to get power via sucking up to Satan. You can see that they're serious too from what they've done.
Yeah, it would be nice to know.
Very spooky. You mentioned. Yeah, if it's a hand, we're starting to look into that voodoo aspect, which you can't discount anything until you've got more information. But a head and hand is a voodoo thing. None of us appear to know a ritual, but Fernando just found that there's a satanic group that's actually in Victoria. Might not be them because it doesn't have Nazi symbols.
Well, you may want to give them a knock on the door there, David.
Yeah, nice Jewish boy. Hey, Nazis, how you doing?
Were you guys in a cemetery lately? Let me see your shoes.
I'm sure the police are already talking to them or have already talked to them.
I don't know what the police have done or haven't done because it's all fallen out of the media now. We're just under a fortnight of it having been out of the news, and they haven't. Nothing else has come up. So the police have just said, it's a thrill seeker. Nothing to see here, folks. Move on. And the media has moved on. I'm saying that it's not. You weren't able to find the picture looking down on top of the.
I couldn't find it. No.
Yeah, because I only found it in one news story, and I screenshotted it and got it to you. But the other one you showed, you can see how wide the mausoleum is. It hasn't come out like from a pizza oven. Looks to me like there's enough room in that mausoleum that a small family group can all fit in there and have a look and say their prayers.
Well, have you ever butchered an animal?
No.
You need some working room. if you're going to be cutting stuff off the body.
I reckon they've got room to do that. They've pulled it out for a reason. Could be, as the police say, attention seeking. I just think that they've got it there to put it on display. But then again, now that we've seen how wide that mausoleum is, that could have been displayed that way in the mausoleum.
Yeah. Maybe they got a store list. Like you need a ring finger, you're going to need a left calf, you can just pull it out, do all your work right there. You need the head, obviously. Duh, almost forgot the head, what I came here for.
That's normally when a corpse is decapitated, it's done to stop the corpse from getting up and coming back to life. That's more your traditional beliefs. The corpse in this case has got nothing to do with their ritual. They just want the body part.
You ever think it's some crazy nut job saying he's got the cure for COVID? Come eat my human head soup.
Would it be edible?
Cannibalism.
I mean, look, you could be right. People
I mean,
in Satanism and some of these strange rituals do drink blood, but there is a possibility that that body parts and that are going to be made into a stew and used in a ritual. I hadn't even thought of that. It's possible that whoever's done it, getting back to what you were talking about last time, Tom, has had such a rush, such a high, that they actually believe they've now had a spiritual experience while lighting these candles and doing all of this.
wow.
I think it's a cult. I think it's a coven, though. That
it didn't happen on a certain date that was important to like a Satan calendar or something.
No, there were 3 dates, only 2 of them mentioned, and
Okay.
they're a few days apart, so we're not looking at full moons. I couldn't think of anything astrological.
Yeah.
But date-wise, I just don't know enough. There are people that get into dates.
This guy's working harder, not smarter. If he wanted, like, it almost sounds impulsive now, because if you wanted 3 skulls, wouldn't you do them in the same night? Like, just get it over with instead of coming back day after day? Or is it a 6-hour job?
Or is it a case that there is a thrill aspect to it? So they've got the thrills on that night and they've come back because they want some more thrills.
Does that have anything to do with, like, Fernando, you were saying in the Jewish, I know there's like nights in Hanukkah, maybe they have to do it like a certain number of nights in a row. Could that be anything?
Oh,
You're
Fernando.
muted.
Oh, yeah, you broke up through the middle of your question. Like, is there something that goes on for multiple days? Yes. There's multiple
like a
rituals.
ritual has to take like first day, second day.
Yeah, so like there's the Abramelin ritual that takes place over, it was like 40 days or something. So it depends on what system you're working with. But yeah, there are multiple rituals that go on for multiple days. Like, and it's
The
crazy
Abramelin
too.
one, with Abramelin, and you've brought up a very important one. Abramelin is quite central to a lot of the Satanists now, but Abramelin has the devil as a separate character with 8 lieutenants, and Satan being one of them.
Yeah, it's all based off Goetia, or the Lesser Key of Solomon.
If this guy was after worshipping the devil, then he would be worshipping the devil. If he's worshipping Satan and it's Abramelin, then it's Satanism. Now, most people that are into Satanism are worshipping the devil and think that Satan is a name for the devil, not a lieutenant. So Beelzebub is a lieutenant. Leviathan is a lieutenant. Lucifer is a lieutenant. So when you choose a lieutenant, then you've got all of the demons that are under them. And you usually work from the other way. You don't start with Satan. You start with the lowest of the creatures, and you dominate one after another. So I'm thinking maybe Abramelin is something we can rule out here.
Yeah. Did they say they saw anything on the floor that was carved in, like circles or triangles that were on the floor, drawn in, like summoning circles and stuff? Like that's very key in Goetia, is to, like, there's certain things you have to draw on the floor. Specifically, like there's when you draw a summoning circle around you, and you draw a protection circle around Well, around yourself, and then the summoning circle goes around the deity you're summoning. So the idea is they can't escape the circle and hurt you.
But they
So,
didn't mention salt, and usually the circles are made of salt.
well, and specifically in Goetia, it doesn't really matter. But when you hear about salt and stuff, it's kind of more like sort of like pop culture or poppy, as opposed to like being like sort of esoterically inclined. I mean, a lot of it is just sigils. But when you hear about salt and stuff, it's more like a Hollywood thing.
They're also, I can't see it. You've got candles. They didn't mention water, so I don't know if there's earth, air, fire, and water involved in this. There is so little amount of information, but we can rule out earth, air, fire, and water because water's got to be in something.
Yeah, there's got to be a vessel for it, and then there to have
Yeah.
ashes. There was fire, so that rules out Wicca and Druidism. So that
Yeah.
wasn't that.
So there's a lot that we can rule out if we can think of all of the things that you rule out. I'm absolutely stumped on it. I just know that the police are incorrect, that this isn't a thrill seeker. This is somebody who actually has a sufficient belief in Satan that they've got a sufficient belief in Satan that they've gone to all of this trouble and they have really planned it out. It's not shallow effect. And they've been to the cemetery successfully twice. They've also been unsuccessful where they've tried to get another head. So possibly numbers is in it. But then again, I could be wrong on the numbers. Maybe they would have gone for a 4th, 5th, and 6th head. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you think this person or group of people are dangerous because of that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe anybody that does not respect other people's feelings is dangerous. Basically, I already know that I could not torture an animal.
Mhm.
I just couldn't. This is a person that probably could. They don't care about anybody else's feelings, and they're fairly fearless about getting caught. They just left everything out there, and they were so planned. They were in there for a long time. Goths, when they break into a cemetery, are looking over their shoulder, and once they've fucked around for 10, 20 minutes, they're probably over the cemetery gate and out and bragging to their mates that they went to the cemetery.
Mhm.
These guys have stayed there, or this guy or guy has stayed there for as long as he feels it takes to do what he does. And he's hopped on top of the bloody mausoleum and had another ritual there. So that's something that could be seen from outside of the cemetery gates.
Is there any specific thing in like Satanism where why wouldn't they like burn the notes, or why are they facing them up? Or I would think you'd have them on the ground or something. Is there anything like that?
It's probably shock value, to be quite honest. A lot of people do it just for shock value. Look how cool I am! I try to summon Satan. Like, ever seen the movie SLC Punk?
No, I
No.
haven't.
No, there's a scene where it's about this kid who's like growing up in Salt Lake City or whatever, and he's trying to become a lawyer. But there's this one scene he goes to a party, and there's this dude who's trying to summon Satan, and he's out there. Oh, I'm summoning Satan, and nothing ever happens, right? But I mean, a lot of people just do it for the shock value, just like, oh, look, I'm so evil, I summoned Satan. Or I mean,
Problem with that, if this person starts woofing about it to everybody to brag, they're going to be caught really fast. You might be right, and we find out in a week's time that the guy was showing their head off, at the local heavy metal gig, and somebody dobbed him in, and he got caught. That's something that we'll find out in time.
Yep.
But I personally think that this is a real attempt at Satanism. I can't see any background, like saying, hey, the person studied Crowley, they studied John Dee, they studied this person, that person. I can't see it. So it may be a ritual they made up, not one that they found that's well known.
Well, doesn't that happen a lot in like Wicca religion, where they say kind of do, there is no real book in witchcraft, or this, you can kind of do what you want. Do you think they maybe did that with Satanism?
Wicca sort of does have a book, because Wicca is an attempt to preserve ancient white witchcraft by Gerald Gardner. who was a Freemason, and he gives it a Masonic structure to fit in the different things that he found. So he spoke to lots of different local covens and practitioners, and they're all very different, but he tried to put it into a form to preserve it. So in a way, they do have a book, but you would keep a private book of your practice and your spells and things that work, which is a grimoire. Certainly nothing to do with Satanism. This particular brand of Satanism, I believe, is reverse Catholicism because they're targeted to Catholics. And the crucifix, they didn't say much about the crucifix brought, but I will bet you it was used in an inverted fashion.
You know, inadvertently today, I put on my King Diamond shirt. Not on purpose, of course. King Diamond, famous Satanist.
Okay.
Now I've got something to look up. Now, I think they might have taken a lot of their Satanism from pop culture and movies and stuff, but it's hard to know just based on what we've got.
Well, what I was reading a little bit about this, and some doctor expert said that he's never seen Satanism in Australia, or Satanism and that kind of Satanism in Australia. So it's new, you know, stealing bodies, robbing graves. That's a new phenomenon in Australia. Have you ever heard of anything like that before?
No, I never met anybody that that was part of a coven, a satanic coven. But the Theosophical Bookshop in the city did have a book that was definitely satanic. And I'm not talking the Levian Satanism, which they probably respect. But this was a book on how to bring up demons. And it was the Necronomicon. Somebody went out and wrote a book called the Necronomicon, and they put in a whole lot of rituals. And I just used to think it was fun to buy copies of the book for Gothic friends' birthdays. And I later on found out that at least 2 Gothic friends had taken that book seriously and actually decided to do the rituals in it. Now, I never kept a copy for myself. It was real Hollywood hoodoo bullshit. Somebody just made it. It just had the right cover. It had all of the right things in it. Now, maybe I should have done a bit more research before I came here to go out and buy a copy.
So the Necronomicon is a fiction book written by H.P. Lovecraft, the same guy who does the Cthulhu mythos. So it's the story of the mad Arab and all these demons that he had to fight through the desert and all these rituals. But it's fiction. It's 100% fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Necronomicon is in the Evil Dead. Come on now.
Yeah, it's not that Evil Dead, and I'm not sure that this is H.P. Lovecraft's Necronomicon. I think the one that I used to see was written by somebody familiar with H.P. Lovecraft and decided to create their own Necronomicon, which is the book of fiction that he's got. And this really did look like satanic rituals that some idiot had made up, and they're probably making quite a lot of money from it because it was just the ultimate book as a goth to give to people and say, hey, look, I've got it. But when I said I should have done more research, what I meant is I should have done more research to see, is there something in that Necronomicon where somebody goes to a cemetery and removes the head of a corpse?
I think this is the version that you're talking about.
Yes, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
1980. It was in the 80s I was into goth, and about 1990 I was giving it to people. So you see that fantastic cover. Now, with the satanic symbols this person showed, is that one of the satanic symbols that he used? If we saw, we would know. But yeah, that's the book. Does it say who the author is? Is this H.P. Lovecraft himself?
Simon. Some guy named Simon.
Oh.
No, that one's not it. You've moved from it. So that one that you just brought up is the exact book.
All right. Well,
so
hey, it's
I didn't read through it to see.
$7.99 on Amazon if you want to get a copy. I have a paperback copy, a little bit more expensive, $92 if you want a hard copy.
I think this book, when I was buying it, just as a paperback, was like $20 or 25, because I can't imagine when I was broke spending massive amounts on my friends' birthdays. But if I go into the 2 particular people I know who did the rituals, right? They were serious enough when they were doing them. In other words, one of them was a girl, and she was saying some sort of prayer around a tree, and she'd stripped off naked, and the family caught her and sent her off to the loony bin. We're allowed to say loony bin in cancel culture now, but they sent her off for a professional assessment. The other guy lived on his own, and he actually did get out a razor and start slashing himself, and they were all permanent scars. So these people were very serious, but they weren't very planned. They certainly didn't have skills. So they didn't have skills where they would be able to get to a cemetery, have a ladder, tools, and be able to do this. But I do think if I had a copy and could read through it, it is a possibility until I can cross that off the list, because I don't know if.
Sorry,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just don't know if there's a ritual in there. But that Necronomicon, that gives me more of what I believe the vibe of this person that broke in is, rather than a person that has studied, as Fernando talked about earlier, the Black Tree of Life, seems to know anything about the whole history and the different practitioners that have contributed. And well, if we're going to round up, I just reckon everybody should just take the floor in turn and just say, from what we've discussed, what their thoughts are. Fernando? Oh,
Yep.
I think this is a group of poser kids who are getting into Satan because they saw a couple of movies and are listening to 80s death metal, and all of a sudden Satan's cool. Because a lot of the stuff that we read about doesn't seem like it follows any sort of method. It just seems like, oh, I'm going to do something for shock value. I'm going to go do it. And they went out and did it, but it doesn't seem to follow anything that we know of. And according to the scene, it doesn't seem like left anything regarding ritual behind other than candles. So like, we don't really know what happened. All I can do is just throw out conjecture and say I was probably just a bunch of kids, because all this stuff is very like Satan-like, you know. It just seems like a really cheap knockoff of like session Satanism.
The cheap knockoff is that. That's where I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Tom?
Yeah, these are. It doesn't feel professional. If that sounds anything, it doesn't sound like a group of professionals did it. People who didn't want to get caught. It seems like over the pandemic, like the Mystic Shop was saying, it's not just an awakening in Wicca and all that stuff. It's awakening in all kinds of religions. People have been locked in for 2 years with their own thoughts. And if they think they can create their own ritual, and they've been just stewing and doing this with a group of friends for a while, somebody's become the leader, and he said, okay, here's a set of rules. This is what we got to do. We're going to really take off with this church that I'm creating. We'll even let the media get us out so we can recruit more people, let them know, be like, hey, we did that. Come on with us. We're the real deal. And I would look for new Australian witchcraft pages. What date were they founded on Facebook, and search through there.
They'll get kicked out of any witchcraft society or pagan society in Victoria, I'm pretty certain. They're going to be on their own. Mm-hmm. Chris, what do you think?
I kind of agree with Fernando. I think it's posers, amateurs, and I don't see this as a real satanic ritual. I don't know. It seems very sloppy.
People with a satanic phase.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think these people are going to. We all start somewhere.
Okay.
I think these people were serious, and this is their start.
You got feeling more's coming.
What do you think is coming?
Well, at this point, unless a third head is taken, the other, if we're talking about where it's going to head from here, if they don't go and get a third head and keep developing these rituals, if it's a group and there's problems, the police are closing in, the next thing is going to be someone gets killed to shut them up.
Ooh.
Or it's possible, and this is going to be sort of a stretch, but like in the Order of the Nine Angles in the United States, there was a soldier who was feeding troop data as to where they were in Afghanistan back to the O9A, so they knew, and the guy got charged with treason. So I mean, it's possible. Maybe even the police are involved. I mean, if it's that big of a deal, it's highly possible that the police are involved in keeping it hush hush. I mean, there are known there's known gangs and groups within police departments that do stuff like this too.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, the fact that the police are giving out what I consider misinformation, and we discussed it here, and so 4 minds have been on it and said, this isn't a thrill seeker. Whoever's done it thinks they're a Satanist.
So my question, if they are Satanists and they're collecting these heads for a ritual, they're collecting these heads for a reason, why would they leave behind letters and other satanic symbols? Why would they leave those behind for the police?
Well, you might be right that they want the attention. The other part could be they're just so hardcore they don't give a fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
But-
it's retention. I think it's
but-
retention.
I think what Tom said earlier, why wouldn't you burn them? So, so with those, I don't think that they left the cemetery in a hurry because they thought they were going to get caught, because they were there. They were there over 2 or 3 nights.
So within chaos magic, when people do chaos magic, the one thing that they will do is create a sigil, right? Draw it, and once they draw their sigil, they're pushing their manifesting intent on the sigil on the piece of paper, and when they're done with it, the idea is to burn it, so that intent goes into the ether and goes on the other side. So when you're burning it, transmogrifies and goes into the other side of the astral plane. So even leaving letters laying around doesn't even kind of fit like the esoteric occultist themes of like even chaos magic, which chaos magic is like magic 101, right? That's like what everyone else gets into when they don't want to get into Wicca, you know? So, but even in that, the rule is like you want to burn your intent. Like if you're leaving little messages for Satan to read that you want him to read, the idea is to burn them. So I'm starting to think more and more this is just done for shock value.
In Judaism, when people pray at the Western Wall, they write a letter to God and they put it in the cracks of the wall. They don't burn the letters. In fact, somebody comes each day and actually takes all of the letters away so that there's room to do more. So there are instances where letters aren't burned, but I'm with you, Fernando and Tom, that the burning of the letter is important. And you brought up something very important, Fernando, that I just totally missed. Because I'm not a kiddie, all that chaos magic and the card games and stuff, that's pretty much after my time of getting into it. But I met a lot of people that are into it and swore blind it's a real spiritual system and that it's deep. Was there a chaos magic element there, which is why I've missed everything altogether, because today's kiddies wouldn't have picked up the Necronomicon. It was a 1980s book that was big with us 80s to 90s goths. Chaos magic for someone after the 90s.
So was there anything like that there? I wouldn't know.
I have no idea. I just remember people into it, and we're trying to work out what was going through the minds of these people that broke into the cemetery. What were their influences? The cops have just not given out sufficient information to work out any of that, other than the letters that we saw. The cops didn't talk about what we saw on top of the mausoleum, but the letters were arranged into the shape of an S. And that was the first thing that made me think amateur. So it's not in a Hebrew letter, it's not Latin. I originally thought they were trying to make a snake, and then I realized, oh, S is for Satan. That's getting into your childish sort of, that's somebody just getting into it. But boy, did they get into it in a fucking huge way. They're going to be dangerous people. Idiots are more dangerous than people who are clever.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we didn't quite solve it, but we got a good handle on it, I think.
Oh yeah, anybody that's been getting into this story would now know a little bit more, and they can now hit the books and hit Wikipedia and the internet and start looking more, and they might find some clues and be able to to shunt the clues our way. There might be a Chaos the Magic Gathering fan out there. There might be somebody that knows the Necronomicon inside and out. There might be somebody that just picked up a clue from what we're talking about.
Did we just do a true crime podcast?
It sounds like it, yeah.
I think we did.
It is a true crime podcast, but one that involves Satanism. But it is a crime, and it's a true crime one. And the criminals are still out there and may strike again. Or if the cops are closing
Hashtag it true crime.
Yeah, if the cops are closing in and one of them's a bit weak, that one might go to the cops, might end up being killed.
Ooh.
There's a lot of people that got into Satanism that didn't know a lot about it. I vaguely recall one in Yaroslavl where people made a human sacrifice of one of the friends in their group.
Oof.
There was no proof that these people had really studied, but the Yaroslavl one was huge news over 20 years ago.
Yeah, I don't remember that one.
Mm-mm.
No, it was very difficult to look something up when you can't spell it. How do you spell Yaroslavl?
Sound it out. Sound it out. I just hashtag this true crime.
Sweet.
Yeah, this is a true crime podcast, but the only people that can really look into this would be a psychologist to start with, and the psychologist that spoke about this said, no, it's a thrill killing and a psychopath. We've already shown that this is
underestimate wine drinking, stay-at-home moms that listen to this shit all day and have it figured out from some other Satanist podcast they solved the last time. People really dig into the true crime.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the other half is that the main people that would be looking at it, I mean, think about it. We're Kolchak right now, Karl Kolchak. We're on a case that is not cold. And the killer, well, it's not a killer in this case yet.
Not yet.
That's the not yet, which is the worry. So we're on the, we're looking from the evidence, the little evidence we've got, and we are on a true crime Kolchak crusade.
Let's get them. I want those heads back in the mausoleums.
We'll have to. We'll follow this story. We'll follow it, and we'll have updates if there is major updates. You know, if there's any people that go missing in Australia, you'll have to let us know.
You wouldn't know if it was just a missing person because people go missing all of the time.
Well, missing heads.
It's Australia. You see the animals there. It's no big deal if somebody goes missing. Something.
Well, if it comes down to animals, the one thing that is quite likely is is this mob going to be torturing people's pets or looking for goats to behead? Something more could turn up. I don't think this. Does anybody here think that this has happened and it's just the end of the story?
Not if they didn't get the loot on the last one. Something about the number 3. It's like that's too important of a number.
And they also folded up some of those letters into triangles. So number 3 is on their mind. But they can't get back into the cemetery to do the third one under such high security. So if they do manage to get into the cemetery under high security, these people have got some pretty big skills.
Check out your cemeteries, your cadaver labs and colleges. Keep an eye on them. I think they just need a head.
If they're going to do a ritual and they're going to do it with 2 heads, what are they going to do? They're going to have a sacrifice or something? Is it going to be a human sacrifice? They're going to torture somebody's
Well, I'm telling you right now, David, my student ID still works at UWM. And you give me an hour, I will give you 8 heads. That's to drive to the college, open the cadaver lab, and get the heads. I could do it in an hour.
Now, these people wanted to break into a grave. The desecration was pretty much central to what they're doing. So, I think we're on a true crime podcast. I don't know if this is the end of story, like they got their thrills and they're finished. Yeah, that's what I'm with you, Tom.
Yep.
I think we're at the beginning of something. And I wouldn't be surprised if something more happens if I don't end up hearing from the cops because I've been speaking about it, either to pick my brains or to tell me to shut up.
Yeah. Ooh, if they tell you to shut up, though, you got to tell us. You
Yeah,
can't
then
shut
you know
up.
there's something definitely wrong if they're telling you to be quiet.
Oh, definitely. So all we can do is this is the evidence as we've found it, analyze it to the best of our ability to date. Let's see what happens next.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know what it's going to be? You know what I'm picturing? Like the end of a horror movie where David Black is this criminal mastermind, and when he shuts it off, he goes to his freezer, and there's two heads in there. Like, I'm just throwing them off my trail.
That actually would be more of a narcissist psychopathic thing to do. And I don't think that it's a psychopath because of the amount of planning. So the person who did it wanting to be involved in everything else to do with the crime, to be hearing about themselves, I don't think I fit that pattern.
That's exactly what a psychopath
That's exactly what. Yeah.
said.
I haven't even gone out to the cemetery to see the aftermath or ask.
Well, you didn't want to
cops or
return to the
anything.
scene of the crime, dude. Why would you do that? That's how 90% of serial killers get caught. You know that.
Well, they did return to the scene of the crime,
They
and they did it again. There's some vague stuff in some of the stories that they may have scouted out the scene ahead of time, that they went in and were unsuccessful the first time and came back. So they may have been to this cemetery a number of times. But do they have to go back to the same cemetery to get another one?
No.
Can it be any cemetery?
I guess
Did it need to be
the
done
rituals.
within a certain period of time for their ritual? Although I think we sort of established that none of us can pick that there's a known ritual behind this, so they're probably making it up as they go along.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't know. I wish I had the answer. I really think that it's somebody just horsing around, somebody that doesn't really know anything about Satanism. It's just a pop culture kind of Satanism. But I guess I wish I knew what was in the letters. That would probably tell a lot.
And see the symbols.
Yeah. Yeah. That would probably tell us a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know, but to even hear that there's like they brought a crucifix with that, for me is like almost like an indicator there was definitely like pop culture Satanism, because a lot of them, what I've noticed, will flip over the cross, like, oh look, I'm so edgy and cool, and it's like, dude, that's a cross for Lorraine. What's wrong with you? It's still Christian. Like that eludes them still. So, but they're so hard to go reverse cross is satanic when it really isn't.
No, it's not. It's also a Christian symbol. Wasn't it Peter that said, I'm not worthy to be sacrificed like Jesus, so they sacrificed him upside down?
Yep.
So
That's the story.
So that's a St. Peter's cross. Is still a Christian symbol, or am I wrong?
Yeah, it's still a Christian symbol.
Because there's also the St. Andrew's cross. There's a whole lot of crosses. They're all Christian. So, but me being Jewish, you can't invert a Star of David. It doesn't matter how you turn it round.
I was just talking to Molly about that. We saw something with Satanism. I think it was one of Chris's messages, and I'm like, they said it was the Wicca star flipped upside down, and in my head, I was always like, I thought it was just turned like slightly, like 30 degrees. I didn't put the flip it upside down in my head. I'm just like, it's just off.
In Wicca, the pentacle stands for man, and if you flip it or invert it, it's Satan, where it's like the two horns attacking heaven. That's where you see the 2 points or whatever on the star.
Yeah, you got the two horns, then the ears, then the beard of the goat. And that's why I'm thinking goats are going to come up next, or animals, as a sacrifice and a ritual, unless the cops
Find
really
the goat farms and put up some trail cams.
I know people that own goats. They've got farms. But
give my heads up.
For Footscray, the closest place might be the Collingwood Children's Farm. So if the next thing is you find an inner city farm, like the Children's Farm, and a goat has gone missing or sacrificed, we'll see what comes up next. Not everything actually makes the media. So if somebody did go out to the Collingwood Children's Farm and snatch a goat, I don't know if it would have made the news, not even the local news.
Aren't there some sort of animal that could have got in there and snatched a goat too? Like,
I
it's
don't
not
know.
a big thing in Australia for a goat to go missing.
It would if it's a city farm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I know the Americans read about animals, bush animals appearing in the city.
Instantly, I
Uh,
think dingoes. Instantly. That's all I think
Yeah,
about. Is
they
all I
got
think
the
about.
goat. They
Well,
drove it off
it did
300
happen
yards.
during the lockdown that kangaroos had bounced along the Merry Creek from the country and come out in an inner city suburb, but it's very rare. So we don't really have wild bush animals walking through the city. It's just a good joke for tourists. But yeah, if these people are Satanists, I believe just because you don't know enough about Satanism and you're just starting and you're an idiot, doesn't mean that you're not a Satanist.
It
I
doesn't
mean,
mean you're not
every
dangerous. Yeah.
every ritual started somewhere with somebody making it up. So these guys could be making up their own shit, or they just might know stuff we don't know. I believe they are skilled. I do believe it's on a metaphysical scale, it just comes across as amateurish. These people don't know. It's amateurish in the fact that they are sucking up to a supreme being, a superior being, asking for favors, whereas your advanced practitioners generate energy to use themselves. So I think we're all on the right track that, yeah, it's amateurs, but I'm saying it's dangerous amateurs, and they dangerous in the physical sense.
Oh yeah, if they're willing to worship Satan, I'm sure they're willing to attack someone for their beliefs.
Well, your usual Satan worshippers in Australia are LaVeyan, and they're not dangerous. In fact, they're normal, everyday people in society. So Anton LaVey was just looking at the Hollywood look of Satanism and
Yeah.
starting up a fun club that Sammy Davis Jr. and Diana Dawes could join, and that they could be paparazzi in their own life and get into films like Rosemary's Baby. Now they have a lot of followers because something's built, but what's built is not built on animal sacrifice and torturing animals. So yeah, they're not really devil worshippers.
No.
Yeah. Well, I think we got it.
All right. On that note, I think we should wrap things up. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Yeah,
Hey,
thank you.
thanks
Nice
for
meeting
having
you
me.
guys. Thank you, guys. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was a very interesting chat. We'll be back next week, same time, same places.